So you're welcome back to the post. We apologize for that break. We had some few technical issues. We had to sort them out. But I still have in the studio Sir Prince Armah, the Member of Parliament for Kwesi Mintim in the Western Region, of course, the Deputy Minister for Works and Housing, and of course, Engineer Richard Kofi Ameko, Head of Drainage Ghana Hydrological Authority. And before we had that glitch, we were talking about flooding and, of course, the drainage issue. So we'll go back to that discussion, and then we'll also talk about housing, and then zooming into the upcoming conference that is seeking to, get experts, recommendations to see the way forward in terms of dealing with the two very important matters. So again, Dr. Prince Armah and then Engineer Ameko. So the drainage system, I mean, before we had a glitch, we're telling me about the fact that there is now a master plan developed for the Greater Accra region and the Ashanti region. We're hoping to do so for the other 14 regions. What does this master plan entail, and why was it necessary to have a plan in the first place?
I think it's important that if you want to plan, then you must have a certain underguiding policy framework. And so for us to be able to comprehensively address our flooding situations, we need to do a proper demarcation, and mapping out of all the regional landscape, all the drainage system that we need to create. So that's what the master plan is trying to do. And we're doing that at regional level. If we're able to do that and complete it, then we'll be able to indicate that this particular land, there is a drainage system there that there should not be any burden in that place in the first place. So without that, then the plan becomes haphazard because there's no benchmark, measurable indicators to be able to address our drainage and flooding situation comprehensively. So that's what we are seeking to do. And as I indicated to you, if you take Greater Accra, the interventions that we're putting in, i.e. the Greater Accra Resilience and Integrated Development, the GARED project, that we put in a lot of resources to be able to address the problem. We are solving only 2% of the flooding situation in Greater Accra.
Greater Accra.
So that's so it requires a lot of investment.
So we don't have a handle on the matter.
We need to really work hard, and to be able to do that is to be able to map out the drainage system, and then we can then estimate. Because if you don't have the plan, you cannot even budget within the context of the PFM system. So that's exactly what we want to do. And we believe that if we're able to do that, we can increase our flood resilience and reduce our flood risk, and then be able to address the flooding situation that we have across the country.
So, Engineer Ameko, I'm hearing him talk about the fact that the plan, or what we have in place now, is only able to deal with 2% of the flooding situation. That doesn't give me a lot of comfort. It tells me that I'm probably on my own when it comes to flooding.
Yeah, he's somehow right, because of some work has been done. Okay, so looking at, in Ghana Hydrological Authority, we have this National Flood Control Program, which we undertake every year once we get commencement from the Ministry of Finance. So as of from 2018 till now, in Greater Accra alone, works that has been done, that is what he says, about 2%.
Just 2%?
Yes. It's all because we try to identify hotspots within Greater Accra where we are able to take off some bottlenecks to allow water to flow. So if you go to some of the communities, such as Medina, Oblogo area, they will attest to that effect. If you go to Santa Maria, I don't know, some years ago, you do hear that Santa Maria, any little downpour, the whole place floods. These interventions were put in the Iron Seat Kaswa. If you go to Kaswa Enclave, yes, this National Flood Control Program has been very, very effective in those areas. Yes, so as we are looking at the whole thing together, there has been some discussions also that, ideally we should have gotten a service plot. If I say service plot, you understand. If you go to the estates, they put in the drainage systems and everything before they sell the plots to the individuals. So, but then it doesn't happen outside. So people they get the land, they go in to just develop. So I have issues with that, that once you get there, you buy the land, you should go to the appropriate quarters so that they can advise you how to go about managing the place. But it doesn't happen so. So, and I also have a little bit issue with ECG.
Why?
Yes. It's simply because people are building in waterways, wetlands, estuaries.
Even the Ramsar?
Yeah,
Ramsar
good,
site.
the Ramsar sites. The next time you see electricity poles, mounts all over. So I ask myself, it is more or less like it's encouraging people
To build anyhow. Because once they apply for electricity,
exactly,
electricity will be extended to them.
Yes.
Does it mean that ECG doesn't cross-check to say that, let me check with Assembly whether this property deserves to be here?
Yes, so this is why I'm so happy about this forum. So they are also part of the experts, the stakeholders we are bringing on board. So then we try to address all these issues. Yes, so the other fear also is that if they get the electricity, light and everything, and it rains heavily, and then people are not able to come out from their homes, then they are at risk. They can be electrocuted.
Right.
Yeah, so we need to look at all this together. That's why I'm happy about this forum. The ministry want to
have.
Yes.
But again, let me bring in Dr. Armah to ask. So from policy position, what will it take for us to have 100% coverage if we are doing just 2% now?
It requires a lot of investment, a lot of investment, which we cannot. I don't think that government alone will be able to do that. That's why there are several financing models to this type of enterprise. At the forum, we want to have a conversation around it. There are long-term infrastructure bonds that are available, private sector, public investment opportunities that we want to look at. Because if we wanted them to be on the books of government alone, it's going to take us many years to be able to achieve that.
Recently, the Garrick project, Parliament approved another tranche. What exactly is it going into?
So the additional 150 million will go into a part of it as rescoping of the project, compensation, which was not originally part. So we have Kaneshi, Accra Academy area coming. They were not originally part. We've done a rescoping and going to add them into it, and then also ensure that the people who live along that stretch who will be affected are appropriately compensated.
And I'm interested in the kind of collaboration, if you like, or the kind of relationship that exists between the ministry, even though you may not have direct control over the assemblies because they don't fall under the Ministry of Works and Housing. When we are talking about indiscriminate building that, eventually will be responsible for some of the flooding situations that we see. I remember some time back when we had this issue of flooding that led to the death of some people. President Akufo-Addo said that he was going to personally hold the chief executive responsible if the flooding should take place in their district. So I'm wondering, how are you able to get them to, for example, now that you have a master plan, how do they go by the details of this plan?
I think that what's important is to build relationship and synergies. I mean, the idea of ministries working in silos is actually a problem that we are facing. We need to be able to identify the interconnectedness of the mandates of each of the ministries. As a ministry, as an infrastructure ministry, we're working with local government, water resources. Even the Ministry of Energy comes in with the electricity thing that he's talking about. So we have already started a lot of collaborative work. If you take the Garrett project, the Ministry of Local Government is in there. The Ministry of Water Resource is also in there. So we've already started that kind of relationship. When we intend to leverage that relationship, strengthen that relationship to be able to build that collaborative effort to achieve the expectations of the general public in respect of this flooding situation. At the conference, we're expecting the ministries, local governments, ministries of energy, and the rest to be part, so that together we can build synergy in the work that we're doing in addressing the flooding.
Engineer Ameko, I know you are the professional here, but you work directly with political appointees like Dr. Armah. And I know that sometimes you may have your professional view on matters that come before you, but the politician is also motivated by other things. I'm wondering sometimes how easy or difficult is it to get them to strictly go by the plan and stay within the plan that ultimately helps.
But before he comes in, just to make the point that he is an implementer. It's the politicians and the political leadership that actually evolve the policy.
Yeah, but sometimes they are the ones who put together and then submit it to
exactly,
you. And then you agree to it before the implementation starts.
By evolving the policy, we work with the policy experts to be able to develop it in a manner that when it's ready for implementation, because they are already involved in the development, then they have the buy-in and they get it. But we listen to them a lot as experts.
I think for some time now, we've not had any difficulties with the politicians in terms of our engineering aspect. I mean, they always buy into whatever we put before them. The only thing is you need to explain and let them understand what you want to do. Yeah.
All right. Now, let's talk about housing. 1.8 million housing deficits, 1.8 million. I mean, how are we, or what are we doing to bridge it, to sort of bring it down? I know government is not into the business of providing housing, even though the city housing corporation. They've been very active in recent times, and the houses that they are selling sometimes, as compared to what the private developers are doing, is quite affordable, if you like. But what is the long-term plan? Is government really going to be involved in this all through?
Yes, I think that, I mean, there's a school of thought that housing should be the private engineering of the private person in accommodating itself. There's another school of thought that says that government must have intervention or must intervene in provision of housing. And I belong to the second school of thought, that the basic need of man, clothes, shelter, and food. All right? And so housing is a basic need. Housing is providing housing, affordable housing to the public, is protecting the dignity of man. Because what is more dignifying than having a place to lay your head? Right. If you look at our Constitution, Article 15 of our Constitution says that the dignity of all persons shall not be violated. So the government believes that housing is a mandate, a constitutional obligation, a moral obligation to try and address that. And that's why we have a lot of projects ongoing. I think that if you look at the data available, to be able to bridge the gap, we need that big time investment in housing, in building, constructing more houses. We need about 200,000 unit houses a year.
Every year?
Every year to be able to close the gap.
200,000 every year.
Every year.
And if we are consistent, we're able to close this gap in a matter of what, few years?
But once you do that, urbanization, we have 3.3% urbanization rates. And so it will still, now currently the urban population is about 58%. It will still grow. When it grows, it imposes an undue pressure on the infrastructure available in those areas. But what's key is if we massify the production of housing in that large quantity, we'll be able to plug the gap. But to be able to do that, government alone cannot do it. We need big investment. We need different models of financing, not only producing the house, but also procuring the house. The financing models to do that. The data suggests that 5% can own, only 5% of Ghanaians own a house. 65% of Ghanaians can own a house, but they don't. As for 35%, no matter what,
they will not be able to own a home of their own.
House. Our concentration is on the 65%. And what we are looking at is to get big investors, get investment, private sector investment in producing houses in very large quantity, 200,000, 300,000 a year. That's how we can be able to address the housing deficit. And that is the focus of the ministry. As I speak to you now, my minister is running around, trying to look for investors to come and support us in that regard.
And the cost element to this, even if you bring in a private investor, I mean, land is so expensive, especially in the capital, Accra. So when land is not even available, and when you have it, I mean, the price they are putting on it is way beyond the reach of a lot of people. So the asset developer look at it, and everything falls into the final product and how much they want to price it. So even as you want to bring in the private developer to help to deal, to resolve this housing deficit, deficit. The question is, even when it is done and ready, how many people can it be now?
So the issue is about development planning. So it's not everything that has to be in Accra. If we're able to have lands at places a bit away from Accra, and there's a good transport system, and that's why we have all these collaborative arrangements. A lot of the work, Ministry of Transport, we have a collaboration with them. If we have a good transport system, somebody can leave at Dodowa and come to work at Accra. So these are, you see, we can only resolve this problem by integrated development perspective. If we look at it from housing alone, without recourse to transport, without recourse to local government, without recourse to energy, then it will not work.
But even for
that's
government,
what we are trying
but
to
even for government approach, even if I want to take you back to the era of President John Kufuor, all the way up until now, the concentration has always been Greater Accra, Ashanti region, sometimes the Eastern region, to the neglect of the other region, where even the land may be even cheaper.
Exactly. So what the ministry has done is to do what we call the rural housing or district housing project. So we are going to construct at the pilot stage 2 district houses using affordable, what we call local materials that brings the cost of housing to at least 40% of the traditional materials, the cost the cost of producing the same house using traditional cement and blocks materials. Right. When we do that, we are hoping that we will then democratize owning houses, across the country. So, because in this case, in our villages, in our rural areas, they will also be able to own a house. I think that owning a house, having a land, is a right that every citizen must have. If you say you're a citizen of Ghana, you don't own a land and you don't own a property, it questions your citizenship. As far as I am concerned, and I believe that that's the thinking of the work that we're doing at the ministry, to ensure that as much as possible, those who can afford to own a house, they can own a house. Affordability is contextual. So depending on the income of the person, then we can then define the affordability. But generally, the understanding is that between 20 to 40% of your income, if you are able to afford a decent house with that income, you should be able to, then that can be classified as affordability. But to be able to do that, we need a proper mortgage system to do that.
Right.
But that's why I talk about financing. So if you have a mortgage system such that the mortgage rate is so high, who's going to do that? The mortgage rate is high because the risk associated in procuring or giving out mortgage is high.
Obviously.
Exactly. Now, when we build an integrated system, we have a national identification authority, we have a national ID system. When we introduce an individualized credit referencing system, then we are going to reduce the risk. And when you reduce the risk, the mortgage premium or rate also goes down. So the whole solution is an integrated system again. Pieces from everywhere coming together to be able to address the problem. And we don't think that housing alone can do it. We'll do our bit. But the government is taking steps. As I said, the NIA is rolling out IDs. Now, when you go to bank, you are using your ID, the National Identification Authority. Next year, the government intends to do the individual referencing so that when you go to bank and you show your ID card, they just do the background check for you. And quickly, once you are able to properly identify it, then your risk level goes down, and then obviously to affect the mortgage that you are able to get. And government is also supporting with the home ownership fund to be able to support individuals who want to own a house through a mortgage system. So these are the kind of conversation you want to have at the event. But see how the banks can support us in that.
But I'm wondering what role the Ghana Hydro play, especially in housing.
Okay, so we will have to look at the whole scheme to see where appropriate we will have to put in the drainage systems to convey flow easily from the land area into an outflow. So we have to take the whole map, or we take the land documents, and we do some topographical surveys to identify where to position our storm drains.
It looks like when it comes to the drainage system and how proper you want it done, you don't have issues with a well planned estate development. I think the individuals are the ones that create a lot of challenges, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It is because, I don't know why it is so. They buy the land.
Because if you buy the land, even the plan, you have to submit to the assembly for
them to
for approval.
Do the due diligence
Exactly.
Before. But once they get the land, quickly they go into and start developing. So the issue here is that the individuals goes in to develop faster. Those new.
Sometimes I hear that they write their own stop work, so that the assembly will know that oh somebody has come here already. So let's and the people realize the stop work is on, but the project is
But that's
is
the
done.
symptom of regulatory failure. You know, we have all the laws. The building regulation 1996 is very clear. You just have a read, and you will see that everything that is required for us to have a proper planning system is there. The Local Government Act is very clear. But people are just refusing because of lack of enforcement of these regulations. And everywhere where there's regulatory failure, there's inefficiency. In fact, there are a lot of work that suggests that regulatory failure has effect even on economic growth. I recently did the work at the University of Ghana Business School, where I looked at public expenditure and how regulatory failure can attenuate efficiency in the system. Data across 40 countries using the WDI, what we call the World Development Indicator, clearly gave an indication to that effect. So what we want to do as a ministry is to strengthen our regulatory system there. We have the Architects Registration Council, we have the Engineering Council, we have the Real Estate Agency Council, and then also even the rent control or rent management. All these are regulatory bodies that are regulating the built environment. And we believe strongly that we have to build a synergy between all these regulators and also the assembly. I want to see a time where when the assembly is approving a plan for a building, they will consult Hydro and get permission from Hydro that this person has submitted a plan to construct a building. Can you check and approve whether or not it is not in a waterway?
Is it part of the law that established the Hydro Authority?
Yes.
It's part of it.
Yes.
And how are you enforcing it?
No, ideally, this currently is under the local government.
Okay.
Yes. So at the assembly levels, we have our reps at their planning levels to advise on that. We only give advice to the assemblies, and it is the onus lies on the assembly to enforce it. Yes. So the other thing that
enforcement is weak.
Yeah, that is where the challenge is. Yes. So now, currently, what is going on now in this country is I don't know where we are getting this from. All areas that are reserved, wetlands. Now people are just filling. They go to cut the hills and they are filling.
Very serious.
And in Accra, I don't know why everybody wants to live in Accra. So where they are not supposed to be built,
they are building.
Yes. The Ramsar site. So recently I saw
the regional minister
going to, I think one or two.
He went to Sakumono, and then went to Weja. And Weja, honestly speaking, if we are not careful, it will be a disastrous. Behind the market area and then the flyover. Some years ago, that whole place used to be a Ramsar site. It used to be reserved area for the Bale stream and then the Lafa stream. The water goes there, settle for some time before going into the sea. But if you go behind the Blue Lagoon areas, Dansuman area, they are filling the place. Seriously. And building as if no law exists in this country to control.
Exactly. So if it rains from Santa Maria areas, Bawe areas, when the water gets to the interchange area, it doesn't go anywhere anymore. So there is that backwater to the community. So if we are not able to, so I was happy I saw him going there to, caution them from filling the wetlands. The same thing is happening at
Sakumono.
But
my disappointment for me though is when he said that for those who've already developed, now they will have to now bring in the Lands Commission to sort of regularize their documents because there's nothing you can do about it. But for those who intend to start, those are the ones that they are stopping. And they are bringing in the military and the police to provide security 24/7 to ensure that there is no more disturbances of the Ramsar.
Yes, so I always say that there's nothing that is impossible. once you're able to identify and engineer the place properly. If you go to outside, people are living in, but one thing we should know is that elsewhere, if it is reserved, it has to be reserved.
It is reserved.
Yeah,
if it is for
if it is
recreational
for,
activities,
exactly.
Yeah.
it is
But-
for
Actually for a
yes.
purpose.
Yes.
Yes.
As a detention,
Yes.
a pond, so to speak.
Yes.
To hold the water, and then move slowly at a particular, at its own
After
time.
the rains,
But
subsides.
if you sell all those places, you don't have any place as a buffer to hold the water for. That's why there's flooding all over the place.
Yes,
And again, it's regulatory framework.
And that leaves a lot of responsibilities
Yes.
on the Minister
so
of Works and Housing.
what the minister has given me a marching order. We are setting up a works inspectorate unit. I'm sure in the next couple of weeks you're going to see them out there. We're going to
Works Inspectorate Unit.
Within the Public Works Department of the
And
ministry.
that job will be to do
And
what?
they will ensure the compliance. We're bringing together all the regulators together into a common platform so that when they go onto the field, the engineers are checking, the architect registration are also checking. You have the Works Inspectorate also doing their check. So together, we're checking about health and safety issues, accessibility issues, and then also general compliance in respect of what the statutory provisions are. I think what we need to do is to really strengthen the capacity of our regulators to be able to enforce. Otherwise, we will spend millions of cedis, address the challenges, and because of regulatory failure, we'll come back and then
Square one.
And then the problem will still
be there.
Yeah.
But just let me also add quickly. So we're not only dealing with, when we talk of flood, it's very comprehensive. Beyond the city, beyond the towns, we're talking about the coastal areas as well.
Yeah.
The government is doing a lot of coastal protection works. Between Aflao in the east to Elubo in the west, the total coastal line of Ghana is 550 kilometers. And along that path, there are about 370 kilometers that require coastal protection. Otherwise, the sea level rise would wash away cities and our roads, the community roads.
So we're talking about sea defense wall?
Sea defense. So we've done about 80 kilometers so far. We left 270 to do. And we need
a lot of money
investment
is required to go into
Yesterday we went round and saw from Ningo, Pram. Ningo, we've done about 95%, almost done. Went to Dansuman, almost 95% also done. But again, where we went to, which is the Glefe Lagoon side, moving towards that place, we can move from that side and go to Bebeisi also, Bebeisi to Toko.
Yeah.
If you move, you will notice that the houses there, the sea is just close to the house, the houses and even the road. If we are not able to do something immediately, it will be washed away. And so the government is taking steps.
So the plans to do sea defense wall on the entire coastal area, over 500 kilometers.
We have to do no less than 300. Out of the 550 kilometers, only 370 kilometers require
sea defense
coastal protection. We've done 80 kilometers of it, and we're looking at expanding that. But again, the armor rocks, the revetments, and the groins that are done, they are very expensive. And we require, again, huge capital to be able to do that. We need investors.
All right.
We need private sector.
So in wrapping up the conversation, I'm looking at the objectives of this upcoming conference. Foster collaboration, identify challenges, develop solutions, share best practices, promote sustainable development. These are very, pointed, objectives that you've set for yourself. And you are hoping that between July 2nd and July 4th, we'll be able to come up with workable solutions to move the nation forward.
Exactly. So what we intend to do is that day one will be on flooding or on hydrology. So we're going to extensively discuss. Day one, do extensive deliberation on flooding, on hydrology, discuss how we can even finance flooding situations. There are other countries that have insurance products, what we call flood insurance. Okay, so that if we're able to insure some of our public places, we will be able to mitigate our risk, when there's flooding. So we're going to discuss all these models and then see what better solutions would inure to the benefit of the good people of Ghana and the government in particular. And then the day two, we'll look at the housing again. We know of the housing deficit. We're going to discuss the supply side of housing, the demand side of housing, the financing of housing. We need a big push, 200,000, 300,000. We need a big players to come in and support us to do that. So the experts and industry players, Grader and all the other industry players are coming to share with us best practices and how we can move forward in achieving the objective we set ourselves. And then day three will be on the regulatory framework that we have. So we're going to spend time to discuss all the challenges that people are facing relating to enforcing our regulations. So at the end of the 3 days, our objective is that we'll be able to come to a certain convergence on the way forward in these 3-pronged areas. Right. And then a communique will be issued. We do not want this to become a talk shop that every year we'll go and sit there and talk without any actionable benchmark. So what we intend to do is that when the communique is issued, we will ensure that those that will require policy formulation, we take steps. Those that will require enactment or amendment of an existing enactment, we do that. Right. And then the following year, which is next year, when we present the second bench, we will then share with our stakeholders what steps we took in the previous year in respect of the communique. And I believe that for all of us coming together and having a common understanding, we will be able to evolve policies that would appeal to the general public. All right.
Engineer Michael, you have the final word on this.
Yes, I think I'm looking forward to that forum, which I believe that we're going to have a lot of experts and then stakeholders on board to discuss the way forward about this flooding issue. Yeah, and I'm sure the first day also there'll be some presentation from our CEO, Dr. John Kisi, and then follow up with a professor from the Kenya University, Kwame Nkrumah University, to do a presentation also. All right. Yeah.
Okay. So we hope to see.
Of course.
We want to see the media.
This is a very important.
Not just coming to cover, but we want to see our media partners also participate. Because you know a lot that we don't even know. You're always on the ground. Your ears are on the ground. So we want you to come and participate in the deliberations and help us in obtaining insightful recommendations for our policy formulations. All
right, that's it. So that's Dr. Armah, Deputy Works and Housing Minister, Member of Parliament for Kwesi Bintim in the Western Region, of course, Mr. Kofi Ameko. He's with the Hydrological Authority, no longer department, now authority. Thank you so much for passing through in the conference.
Thank you very much.
July 2nd.